Root beer. Sweet, fizzy, that's already strange enough. But here's something even stranger. Root beer actually started as a kind of medicine, brewed from tree bark and roots. And at one point, it really was fermented. But how did this strange drink make the jump from the medicine cabinet to the soda fountain? And why has it kept a name that still makes people suspicious? Well, it's time to find out. Root beer might look like just another soda, but its origin story is wilder than you think. Traditionally, root beer was just what the name implied, a brew made from actual roots, barks, herbs, and spices. In large factories, the process is more exact. Concentrated extracts are measured and blended with sweetened water to match a brand's flavor profile with machine-like consistency. The brewing liquid is then gently boiled or mixed at precise temperatures, allowing the sweetness to mingle with the herbal oils. Once the flavor base is rich and fragrant, it's filtered to remove any bits of bark or spice, leaving behind a smooth, aromatic liquid. At this stage, adjustments are made. More sweetness if it's too sharp, a little citric acid to brighten it. In small-town kitchens, every batch was slightly different, depending on which roots you could get your hands on and how heavy your hand was with the spices. And then root beer met ice cream. Here, the root beer fizzies furiously against the cold vanilla, forming a creamy foam that's part drink and part melted ice cream. But what's coming next will change the way you think about root beer forever. That rich, earthy root flavor you think you're tasting? In most root beer today, it never even touched a real root. Modern, mass-produced root beer is usually made with artificial flavorings and sweeteners. Instead of sending workers into the woods to dig up sassafras roots or forage for wild wintergreen, companies now rely on food scientists to recreate those flavors in a lab. It's faster, cheaper, and far more consistent. The root beer you buy in New York tastes the same as the one you buy in Los Angeles. And yet, even without real roots, it still carries the same familiar identity. The foam, the sweetness, the slightly herbal kick are all there. For many people, that taste is so locked to childhood memories that they wouldn't notice whether it came from a tree or a test tube. And it has its origins not in soda culture at all, but in traditional medicine. It didn't start as a soda at all, and what it really began as might just blow your mind. For much of its early history, this was not meant to be a fun drink at all. It was meant to be medicine. Long before carbonated sodas existed, Native American tribes used the roots, barks, and leaves of various plants for medicinal purposes. Sassafras root was brewed into teas believed to purify the blood, treat fevers, and calm upset stomachs. Sarsaparilla root was valued for its supposed power to boost vitality and ease joint pain. When European settlers arrived in North America, they quickly picked up on these practices. Colonists began making their own versions, herbal teas, tonics, and eventually what were known as small beers. Small beers weren't necessarily small in flavor. The term simply meant they were lightly fermented, low-alcohol drinks. They were safer than untreated water, which could carry dangerous pathogens, and they offered a way to consume herbs daily. These brews could be made from almost anything: molasses, bread, or a mix of roots and herbs. One particular version stood out, a brew made from sassafras root. It was earthy, slightly sweet, and aromatic. People drank it for its taste, yes, but also because it was thought to be good for you. It was sold as a health tonic in towns and cities, and brewed at home in rural communities. This sassafras drink slowly made its way from home kitchens to local markets, evolving along the way. By the time the 18th and 19th centuries rolled around, root-based brews were becoming a recognized beverage category. Some were more medicinal, others more recreational, but the line between medicine and drink was already starting to blur. And what came next is what made it so legendary. At one point, root beer actually was beer, or at least beer's gentler version. The word beer wasn't just slapped on for the sake of marketing. In its earliest commercial and homemade forms, root beer was fermented. Not heavily fermented like the stuff in a pub, but enough to create fizz and a mild alcohol content. In that sense, it was more like ginger beer or birch beer, a beverage that got its bubbles and bite from natural fermentation rather than a carbonation tank. Fermentation served two big purposes. First, it made the drink naturally fizzy, which people found more refreshing. Second, the small amount of alcohol acted as a preservative, helping the drink last longer before going sour. And remember, this was an era when people weren't exactly sipping on pristine bottled water. In the 18th and 19th centuries, untreated water could be downright dangerous. Even a lightly fermented beverage was often a safer, cleaner choice, especially in towns and cities. So calling it beer made sense at the time. It was brewed, It was fizzy. It had a touch of alcohol. And for some, it even scratched the itch of having a grown-up drink without the stronger effects of regular beer. But as root beer's audience shifted, so did its recipe. By the late 1800s, bottling companies began to remove fermentation from the process entirely. Artificial carbonation replaced natural brewing, and the alcohol content dropped to zero. It made the drink safer, longer lasting, and more appealing to children and families. Yet the word beer never went away. In fact, it became an asset. The name lent root beer a certain seriousness, a sense that it was more than just a sugary kid's drink. During Prohibition in the United States between 1920 to 1933, this was especially handy. While actual beer was banned, root beer, completely alcohol-free by then, was perfectly legal. And the word beer gave it a rebellious edge without breaking any laws. Dropping the alcohol changed everything. But what came next would make root beer a household name. Sometimes the right product meets the right marketing and history is made. For root beer, that history starts with a Philadelphia pharmacist named Charles Elmer Hyers in the 1870s. Hyers was on his honeymoon in New Jersey when he came across a herbal tea made from roots, berries, and barks. Fascinated by the flavor and convinced of its health benefits, he began experimenting back home using sassafras, sarsaparilla, wintergreen, and other botanicals. He developed a dry mix that could be boiled with water, sweetened, and enjoyed as a refreshing tonic. Hyers wasn't just a pharmacist, he was also a clever businessman. He knew how to package and sell ideas, and he had a knack for spotting trends. In a period when herbal remedies were all the rage, his root tea had both novelty and credibility. But he also knew that to appeal to the masses, it needed a stronger, catchier name, so he called it root beer. Partly because it was brewed from roots, but mostly because beer had a masculine, working-class appeal. At the time, beer was the go-to beverage for many laborers, and Hyers saw an opportunity to market his drink as a non-alcoholic alternative that still carried the social weight of beer. His gamble worked. Hyers began selling his root beer mix in pharmacies and general stores. By the 1880s, he was bottling it for wider distribution, and soon it was being served at soda fountains. The social hubs of the day, people who might have scoffed at a sweet herbal tea were far more willing to try something called root beer. The timing couldn't have been better. Soda fountains were booming, prohibition was on the horizon, and families were eager for new, fun, and safe beverages. Root beer quickly moved from curiosity to staple. Other companies took note, and soon competitors like A&W, Barks, and Mug were crafting their own takes on the formula. Each brand leaned into its strengths. A&W embraced a creamy vanilla richness, Barks offered a sharper, spicier kick, and Mug leaned into smooth sweetness. By the early 20th century, root beer was firmly embedded in American culture. It was no longer just a health tonic or small beer. It was a full-fledged soda with a personality all its own. Root beer was now a national hit, but what came next would reveal the secret that truly gave it its soul. For generations, one ingredient defined root beer's signature aroma and flavor. Without it, early root beer would have been almost unrecognizable. That ingredient was sassafras. Sassafras is a deciduous tree native to North America, found in forests from Canada down to the Gulf Coast. Its roots and root bark contain a compound called a saffrole, which imparts a warm, sweet, slightly spicy aroma. In traditional root beer, sassafras provided a complex bouquet, earthy yet refreshing, with subtle hints of vanilla and citrus. For centuries, both the Native American tribes and early European settlers brewed sassafras teas and tonics. Beyond its distinctive flavor, it was widely believed to have medicinal benefits, from purifying the blood to treating fevers and skin conditions. Whether these claims were accurate or not, sassafras had secured a reputation as both flavorful and beneficial. When root beer emerged as a popular beverage in the 18th and 19th centuries, sassafras naturally became the central note. However, in the mid-20th century, this defining ingredient came under intense scrutiny. Studies in the 1960s found that saffrole, the main aromatic compound in sassafras, was carcinogenic in laboratory animals. In response, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration banned the use of natural saffrole in commercially prepared foods and beverages. Manufacturers had a choice: reformulate or disappear. The solution was to switch to artificial flavorings or saffrole-free sassafras extracts. The modern root beer most people know today is flavored using these alternatives. which approximate the traditional flavor while meeting safety standards. Some purists argue that this change dulled the authentic taste of root beer. Others counter that modern formulations are more consistent and, most importantly, safer. Still, in the craft soda world, there remains a quiet but determined effort to replicate that old-fashioned sassafras profile as faithfully as possible, without the health risks. Sassafras had defined root beer for centuries, but what happened next would shake its very identity. In North America, root beer is nostalgic, comforting, even iconic. But in much of the rest of the world, it is bewildering. The flavor profile that Americans associate with root beer, herbal sweetness with prominent wintergreen or menthol-like notes, is entirely foreign to many international palates. In several countries, the first sip can be a shock. People have likened it to toothpaste, cough syrup, or medicinal ointments. This is largely cultural. In North America, wintergreen and similar flavors have long been used in candies, gums, and beverages. Elsewhere, those same flavors are primarily associated with medicine or hygiene products. As a result, when someone unfamiliar with root beer tastes it, their mind often categorizes it as something medicinal rather than something enjoyable. Despite this, root beer has gained niche followings abroad. American expatriates often seek it out as a taste of home, and adventurous food enthusiasts sometimes develop a genuine liking for it. Specialty import shops in Europe, Asia, and Australia often stock a small selection of American root beer brands, catering to these niche markets. Craft soda companies have also helped reintroduce root beer globally, often softening its more medicinal notes or blending them with additional niche markets, a revived alcoholic beverage. Few drinks have crossed so many categories while retaining their essential identity. This adaptability is pretty rare in the beverage world. Many traditional drinks have disappeared entirely once their original context vanished, but root beer reinvented itself again and again. It had already cheated time and reinvention. But what came next would prove its story was far from over. Over the years, root beer has woven itself into film, television, literature, and even music. In classic American diners of the 1950s, it wasn't unusual to see a frosted mug of root beer served alongside a burger and fries in promotional posters and television ads. The root beer float, in particular, became shorthand for wholesome Americana, a scene you might spot in shows like Happy Days, where the drink was as much a set piece as the jukebox in the corner. Beyond nostalgia, root beer has been part of fictional worlds. In the Harry Potter universe, the wizarding beverage butterbeer carries a sweetness and creaminess that many fans compare directly to root beer. Theme parks have even created non-alcoholic butterbeer drinks that, while not exactly root beer, borrow heavily from its dessert-like character. In music, root beer pops up in lyrics as a symbol of innocence or retro fun, a counterpoint to stronger drinks. And in children's literature, root beer often stands in as the safe, yet festive beverage for characters too young for alcohol, offering them their own version of a celebratory toast. But what about you? Do you like your root beer best as a classic soda, a creamy float, or as the newer hard root beer?